On September 3, 2011, after dinner, I was ready to go upstairs to take a shower. On the way upstairs, I fainted. My breathing stopped and my heart wasn't beating. My son gave me CPR until the ambulance arrived. When the ambulance arrived home, the doctor immediately resuscitated me. It took about 3 minutes before I regained a weak pulse. On the way to the hospital, my heart stopped beating twice more. I felt a giant vacuum cleaner above me, sucking my soul out. I felt like I was floating in a dark space. Soon after, I realized that I was dead. I asked myself, am I really already dead? Am I really going to disappear from the earth? It was like a night without moon and stars here. When I put my hand in front of me, I can't see my own hand. There is silence and it feels like there is evil all around. I don't know how long it took, but I saw 3 demons. They were communicating in a language I could not understand. I was lying on a cold slab of stone. These demons were talking and looking at me at the same time. Suddenly a faint light appeared behind them. I could now see their silhouettes. They were about 4 feet tall. They were clearly not human, more like some kind of evil animal. The light behind them grew brighter and brighter. I knew the light was coming to save me. The light soon engulfed me. An angel appeared in front of me. The angel said to me, "Don't be afraid, you are safe now." Then he took me out of hell. After we flew some distance, a majestic building appeared in front of me. We were surrounded by clouds. These clouds were unusual because you could walk on them. The angel and I walked on the clouds. After walking some distance, I saw an arched church window. Then the angel took me into this church. The place was full of love and happiness. I felt the presence of Jesus, but I could not see him. So I said to him, "Jesus, are you there? Jesus, are you there?" Just as I said this, he responded to me. He spoke in a language I had not heard on earth, a language that was older than I had imagined. To my surprise, I was able to understand what he was saying. I lowered my head and listened carefully to his every word. His voice was full of compassion. He embraced me with invisible hands. I tried to describe the experience more clearly, but I couldn't because so much could not be expressed in my limited words. In that moment, nothing else mattered anymore, and I wanted to stay with him forever. I thought this must be Jesus. I wanted to look up and see his face, but the angel pulled me away. Jesus gave me a second life. I realized I was back. But I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't do it no matter how hard I tried. For the next week, I was in a coma. Because of this experience, my life was no longer confusing. I don't know why God decided to save me, but I am very thankful that he did. Hell is a very scary place, and I never want to go there again. The next days I faced life positively, knowing that this was the only way I could see Jesus again in heaven. When I woke up in the hospital, I yelled from my hospital room, "I died, I went to hell, and it was Jesus who saved me." I repeated it several times. At the same time I shed tears of emotion. The nurse told me not to make a loud noise, this is a hospital. After hearing the first story, do you think his story really happened? Feel free to leave your opinion in the comments section. Next is the second story of the day. This experience happened in 2001. At first, I also doubted whether this incident really happened. It wasn't until I started recounting these experiences that I realized that what I was experiencing was real. God and heaven, and my dead father. To make me a better person. There was a time when I wondered when I thought about God's way of doing things. Until I was 21 years old. It was a normal day. I lived a constant life of boredom. The only redeeming factor was that I had a girlfriend. From the moment I met her, I knew she was my true love. Since I am not religious, I don't believe in soul mates or anything like that. But my heart told me, I want to marry this girl. On the weekend, we arranged to go out to see a movie together. After work, I had planned to drive to pick her up first. When I got home, I changed my clothes. Then bought a bouquet of roses under my house. I called to tell her, I was already on my way there and I couldn't wait to see her. Suddenly, a van hit me from the left. I lost consciousness in the car. I don't remember how long it took and I appeared in a dark cave. I couldn't see or hear anything. There was nothing here, only darkness to be felt. I don't know how long I wandered there. I started to panic and eventually I gave up. I sat down and started to cry. I didn't know how much longer I would have to stay here. Whether I would ever see my girlfriend again. I waited and waited. Finally, with grief and panic, I cried out to God for help. The darkness suddenly disappeared and was replaced by light. A bright light filled with love drowned me. Standing in front of me was my father, who had died more than 10 years ago. He chose to commit suicide when I was very young, and Dad and I have never been very close. But standing in front of him, I could feel the love he had for me. I resented his selfishness and ruthless abandonment of my mother and me. What surprised me was, why am I seeing you here? Don't people who commit suicide go to hell? I asked him, how did he get here? He told me, every soul goes to heaven. But they have to go through their own personal hell. What do you mean, personal hell? Wasn't it the darkness I had just experienced? He told me, that's not my hell. When I actually experience it, I will know what it is. I pressed him again, what do you mean? I asked him what happened in hell. His words scared me. He told, every sinful thing I do will be magnified 10,000 times. All the pain at the end needs to be borne by myself. I told my father, I don't want to go through that. He told me, everyone has to go through this process. Suddenly, the light and love disappeared. I fell into my own hell. A hell of my own making. I was not a perfect person. I was a jerk in life. When my father committed suicide, I became even worse. I said a lot of things that hurt my family. I also hurt a lot of strangers around me. On the internet I hurt strangers I didn't even know. I blamed my mother for my father's death because they fought a lot. I also beat my brother, who was 5 years younger than me, a lot. And finally the curse I put on my father after he killed himself. I swore I would never forgive him, and I hoped he would burn in hell forever. I felt like my soul was being thrown into a burning furnace. Worst of all, I experienced the loneliness of having no faith. A world where there was nothing and I had nothing to fall back on. I don't know how long I was in hell. When I came back into the light, I cried out loud. I had subjected people to so much hurt, and it had completely broken me. When I came out, my father was there. He came up and hugged me, as if to let me know that everything was going to be okay. I asked him, where was he when I needed him? Why did he leave us? He looked at me, with tears in his eyes, and apologized. He explained, he had been going through pain and didn't know how to get rid of it. Seeing my dad crying, I knew it was time to forgive him. After hearing his apology, my hatred for him disappeared. I finally whispered, I forgive you. After I said that, my soul walked toward the most beautiful place I had ever seen. I saw pearly gates. I saw the castle surrounded by light in the distance. I stood there in amazement that heaven was really so beautiful. I felt so happy that I wanted to stay. I wondered if I would have a chance to stay after going through hell. I heard someone calling my name. When I turned my head, I saw Jesus. His eyes were brown and his hair was brown. He was wearing a glowing white robe. The only thing I felt around him was joy. Jesus did not open his mouth to speak, but I could clearly hear him telling me that I could not stay. I had a mission to complete on earth. I asked him what the plan was. Jesus showed me everything that was planned for me. I saw myself graduating from college without incident. I saw that I got married and later had a son. I even learned my son's name. When the images disappeared, I went back to Jesus. He told me again that I could not stay and that it was time to leave. He told me that he would see me again and that he loved me. When I woke up in the hospital, my girlfriend was holding my hand. When I asked her what had happened, she told me, I had been in a coma for 3 days. A drunk driver crashed into my car. The impact crushed 4 of my ribs. The doctors weren't sure if I would survive. I know what I've been through. God was watching over me that day. My girlfriend stayed with me in the hospital for a month, which was very touching. My girlfriend and I got married a year later. Not long after we got married, we had a baby boy. I thank God for allowing me to experience this joy. I didn't believe in God at first, but He protected me and kept me alive. I know a lot of people will say this didn't happen. To be honest, I don't care if people believe it or not. I know what I went through.